come from that orientation, but for most of us, it's much more of a like back and forth thing.
Know what I'd say here? This, in a sense, is so that when we're invested in it, it seems like this. Yeah. All that happens with me is this continues doing its story, has its dramas, has this and that. But the stage it's on is very, very tiny, and the space is very, very large. Yeah. And that largeness brings a certain scale to it, yes, that you can't find here. The context really brings a leavening effect on the content, so to speak, yes? The content can never get the context and bring it back. It's realizing the context, realizing you're not the content is what beckons the context, yeah? Yes? It's not the content getting context. It's seeing that there's not the content is the emphasis on the context. So now the emphasis on here is enough for the play to continue. But then a large amount of emphasis that you don't even know is emphasis because there's nothing to emphasize. Yes? It's just space. But there's a sense of it, yeah? An intimation of it while this is going on. Now, it's not an intimation to this. The intimation comes through this. This is an observation. This is not, you're not the context as this and the content struggling. Yeah? I want to be more context. No. There's context, and then what's saying it's the context is content, and what's fighting and arguing with the life of content is content. Yes? Fuck. Yes. There you go. So I'm not working on content to try to mimic context. I have an awareness that's not of itself. It's just aware. And then I have this. Now this was looking in the in for the of. Yeah, I thought I could find the of, like Jesus says, but by realizing I'm not in, has allowed the of to have influence in this little story. Yes? So how it does, the play goes on just like it always does. I have my dramas, this and that, but there's a traveling lighter around it all. Yes? And a lot of the interest and attention has lifted off because you don't need that much interest and attention to make it through a day in Santa Cruz. Now, it takes a lot of interest and attention to live 30 years in a day following the thought system, but no, and the memories. But yeah, so the interest, attention, I got enough to make it through. Yeah, and then then there's just the resting. So that which, if it's in this, if it's in content, that's like the agitation and stuff like that. Yeah. If it's in context, that's the abidance in truth. It's the same energy. It's just where it's being sucked. Yes? So the identification as this makes this play could have maybe 4 acts of comedy. See, like to me, when I was younger, my head was like CNN news flashes. Fuck. I'm fucked. I'm gonna be fucked. I was fucked. Now the same data is just Comedy Central. That's all that happened. Like the director changed. That's all. Really. The same shit's happening on, but it's hilarious in most cases. It really is. Where before it would call me to arms or to fucking heart, you know. It's the same parade. But the effects are different now. Now I don't know how that happened. All I'm saying is I've observed it happening, but I didn't trigger anything. It just seems to have, almost like it bled from the back. And then when it pops out here, you can notice, because this can observe. It's about maybe 2.5 levels above a coconut. So it can observe, because it constantly consumes with itself. It can observe when shit's happening after usually months later, but it can realize, hey, I'm traveling lighter, and it can't presuppose itself behind to be the cause of that story, you know? So what happens to it? Humility arises. Humility. It finds its rightful place in this place, which isn't as the doer and the source and the cause and the center of the universe. It's just a little whatever activity. Yes, nothing to write home about, nothing bad or good. Yeah? And so it reaches levels that are high for it, which is surrender, yeah, being available to be of service, realizing it's not managerial quality. That was a huge one. When I was struck with that, that really changed my whole life. When I realized that I was fucked, I mean deeply, it changed the trajectory of the action figure, because I was a down and out drug addict, you know, and when I got loaded, I attracted some heavy consequences, like a dog whistle went out to authorities, you know, I'd be arrested quite a lot. And so now something else is directing the lights, you know, producing the play, and, you know, a lot of the light goes on a hummingbird or a fucking wave or sky, and then every once in a while finds me, and it goes on my girlfriend and stuff like that. It's nice. It's not like spotlight with little, there's something out there, but it's all me. No, it's like the light's gone dispersed, and, you know, I can see you, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and I'm open and available to that. Like when life knocks, I'm not in the back 40, I'm right there, you know, yeah. I'm available, and all of these things, I could never even conceptualize them. I had no idea. I've just found out by the effects, but I know the effects weren't produced here. They came from that, and they're expressing here. See, they're expressing through this. Yeah.
That play that you just described, where the lights shift on different things, I felt like I was in that for 5 years, and all of a sudden I was at Dominican, our local hospital right here, with a little frail 80-year-old mom having a complication. And I was existing in that for like a good 5 years. There was no alcohol, no caffeine, and then the shit hit the fan. And that complication led to this, led to going back east, led to hospice, led to everything went high speed like the Northeast does, and like my background, my hometown does. And now I drink so much, I'm on so much caffeine, and I'm having trouble, I'm suffering so much, I'm having trouble getting back in the old play that I was in. The spotlight is so intense, and I was a person that thought all my friends were the addicts, you know, until my mother died on June 15th, and until I witnessed Big Pharma, and not little Santa Cruz hospice, but hardcore ICU of hospice in the Northeast. It's a totally different game. And now, I am running on all these substances, and I just want to get off and just want to have anything to say about it. I go to recovery groups now. I didn't before, now I do every day.
Yeah, that's a good start.
Yeah, every day.
Yeah, and just shrink it down to that day at a time, and get some service commitments.
What's that mean?
Service commitments at the
my
meeting.
service to the community?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at the meetings too. Get
Right.
a commitment, because what happens is with alcoholism or addiction, you know, you ever see those pictures of saints with halos? The difference between that saint and an addict is the addict, the halo's here. Yeah.
I don't stand up here.
It's just orbiting around you, like a little ticker tape, all about you. Yes. And then something may lift it, and then it's open to infinity, so to speak. Yeah. So you have to. That's what's happening now. It's surrounding you. So you need to, if you're at a talk like this and you pay attention to the other people in it, it'll pull out the attention from you for a while. And you need to have, in the AA meetings, if you just listen to people, give them the attention, and then because there's a lot of gap in that. But when you look at it from addiction, it seems like a solid thing. So you get the holes punctured, then the attention interest gets pulled out of you, and then you feel available and a sense of presence. Yeah?
Yeah.
And as soon as you want to get that back, then that fortifies this. You got to just surrender, in a sense, and realize that, see, I found really with all that, my worst enemy was my own vested interest. Yeah? So my interest needed to be dispersed, and that's doing commitments and service would pull me out of the ass of self, like a divine proctologist, pop me out. And then I go back in. But one time what happened was, because when I did service, I would feel available, yeah? I might feel bigger and then feel better. And then, you know, I'd feel that's presence of a higher power, if you want to call it, yeah? And then, but the habit was me doing the service, and when I went back into me, then there would be a need to have to do service because that fucking orbit would get tighter and tighter. But one time, I had this sense when I got out, when I seemed to get out of self, instead of feeling that it was me available and present, I felt I was the presence, yes? That got the emphasis instead of me. And then went from the presence, I realized I'm always available, and therefore I'm of service, which was awesome, yeah? Beautiful way to see it. So instead of having me as the center and having to do service to get a little relief from this tight orbit, I realized when I was out, I was that out. That this is the unreality. Yes, yeah. So I would go, you know, sit in the front, listen to people, just let. Because if not, many people can spend a whole day only listening to themselves. Really, especially with Amazon now, you know, have to go out, Whole Foods will deliver, fucking just
well, maybe I have to
with
change
you all
my
day.
service because I'm generally overgiving, and I just quit my job to take care of my mom for the last year.
No,
Maybe
service means to, like, service is whatever, get a commitment at an AA meeting.
Maybe, yeah, that kind of stuff. Meaning I need to do types of service that are more directed, not just everything, and just more directed into recovery.
Yeah, because the first year, and this is all, like you were talking about, this is all action figure. AA is for the action figure, yeah? The action figure has alcoholism or addiction, yes? You don't use non-duality to cure that. That's of the body, yes? I've seen people who try to use Buddhism and they're drunk Buddhists and shit. 12 steps, if you've been introduced to the steps, that's probably your invitation, okay? Yeah, so what happens is the first year you take the suggestions, and as they say, the problem resides in the mind. The suggestions will turn into habits, and habits are actions without thought. So now when I don't think about what meeting I'm going to go to. I go, should I go to a meeting? I think of which one. I'm in the habit. And I found that stuff that was set up my first year, I'm now over 30 years, has been the greatest insurance policy for this thing. Because you may think you're a fucking spiritual teacher. If I shot cocaine up here, if I went in the closet, shot coke, I'd be passing the fucking donation basket now. If you wanted to go out, the body would just fucking go off. Who knows? You could maybe say I wouldn't get in touch, but hey, who knows, yeah? Because you don't realize the body, this thing is what's entertaining alcoholism and addiction, yes? You have to treat it as that. So get into the right habits, and the habits will become a way of life for you. And therefore, the principles will be like a North Star, because I'm telling you something, the head is like a failed GPS. It's got fucking ancient old maps. When you punch in, I'd like to arrive at happy, joyous, and free. For me, I always end up in jail. So you don't want to fucking keep jacking into that GPS. You really don't. So you need to have the wheel, the program, as an intermediary until you have your own sense. Yes.
You still go to meetings?
I do. I was at one today.
Yeah, there you go.
I like them. And then I also, you know, because you're of service, just being there. Yeah. I like them, man. The greatest demonstration here I ever had was getting struck sober 30 years ago. Because in this dreaming, the biggest fucking influence of my life was addiction since I was, well, the discomfort before since I was about 5 or 6, but then when I started using when I was 12, 13, and the type that I am, when I started to drink, I realized I had magnetic appeal to people in uniform. I fucking attracted a lot of consequences. And, but I was willing to pay any consequence tomorrow not to feel uncomfortable now. And now wasn't just now, it was feeling like it was going to be forever. So it made sense to fucking try to get high. But then something happened. It was a regular day at the office. I got struck sober, really. So the whole thing of sobriety was downloaded. But see, I needed a way of life for it to extend. And then the next day I got introduced to AA. I wasn't looking for it. I needed a place to stay. The lady said, if you want to stay at my house, you got to go to an AA meeting. So she took me to my first meeting. I've been going ever since. So
But
AA.
you got sober the day before.
What?
But you got sober the day before.
Yeah. So I got sober. I didn't get sober through AA. I stayed sober through AA. So AA gave me a way of life. So because that sobriety could have been gone the next day. You know, if it didn't find traction in this place, yeah, miracles in this place can be forgotten in an hour, but you'll remember resentments of 40 fucking years. This place has a bias to it, yes? Yes?
You say this place.
This place, this dreaming,
Yeah.
this currents. And we're sort of in a way like salmon running against a very strong currents of greed, envy, sense of separation, like that. They're powerful here. Yeah, so like no one has to go to a 12-step alcohol meeting about drinking alcohol. They had to go to a steps to get out of drinking. Drinking comes pretty easy. Or like you say, you can just destroy a house in a second. It would take you like 6 months to build.
Yeah.
Destruction's much faster here than fucking creation or constructing. Yes? So you have to see there's a lot of powerful elements working. And the mental state. See, I believe the addiction is the mental state's addiction to being a self. And that addiction causes the need to get relief, and they become the other addictions. So I did drugs to get out of myself. I wanted to get high out of me. But I was trying to get out of me as me. That's why it all fucking failed. Yeah? And then further, I had to see it wasn't about getting out of me. I had to entertain, am I actually in a me? And that's when I saw I wasn't in a me, then things stabilized. Freedom and relaxation stabilized here. Yeah. So, yeah, to me, that's the addiction, the mental state's addiction to being a self. And its obsession with self is the way to reinforce the identification as self. See, if you see self as a hostile takeover, you know, or a parasitical movement of this type that's so hostile has to have a great strategy to convince the host not to throw the parasite off. And to me, the parasite talks to you as you up here. That's what it does. If you heard those thoughts as Stanley's, you wouldn't take fucking Stanley's advice. But when you hear the same fucking advice cast as yours, you're fucking a great idea. Let's fucking rob that liquor store. You know what I mean? You have to see farther than just the nuts and bolts of things. You got to see what's happening here. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Do you find yourself, I guess, utilizing attention or, you know, focusing awareness in any particular way, or do you just try to let it be as free as possible?
I don't try to let it be. It's free ranging most of the time.
Right.
But
well, that would be letting it be.
My big noble goals now are like getting a good pants at a thrift store. You know, I have very high, lofty agenda now. Even if my mental state claims it, it can't make much out of it. Getting a good latte at Verve, you know, those are my high.
It's good to be humble.
Exactly. I like the mundane.
And appreciative too.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of that, right?
Oh, totally.
You appreciate it. So
yeah, man.
Then you value it, right?
Well, the thing is, see, if my head gives meaning to things, and I found when I was young, it gave a big meaning to spirituality. It thought spirituality was different than everything else, that it was more noble, yes? And so the glue, it was a very heavy glue that was being applied, yeah? So the identification as a spiritual person was pretty fucking successful in a way, yes? And so when now I'm involved in a lot of mundane shit, it can't get much glue. It's not too much of an adhesive surface, you know? You got a pants on a thrift store, fucking whoopee-dee. You know what I mean? But it tends to keep the, yes.
But if it's simple, it's also difficult to appreciate for somebody who's looking for wow.
Well, exactly. Right? You'll realize you're an addict to experience. People are mostly addicted to experience also.
So people will leave it behind sometimes. Will leave it behind because it's too simple to...
Oh, totally.
Right.
Oh, the herd gets cold a lot. I see a lot of people who are looking for something and they come to these meetings and after a few weeks of getting nothing, they're out of there. They want to have experience, and this isn't an experience. It isn't. You know? It really, actually, it's pretty cool because I remember when I first got introduced to it, you know, my head tried to take advantage of non-duality. So I remember I used this example. I lived in Australia. My girlfriend, at the time, we had a house, and then she went out with her friends, and she said, "Hey, Paul, do the dishes when I'm gone." And I said, "All right." So she got back home, and the dishes weren't done. And she said, "Paul, why didn't you do dishes?" I said, "Well, there is no Paul. There's no Paul to do the dishes." And she said, "Fuck you, do the dishes." So for a while, I tried to take advantage of the non-duality, but luckily there was a growing out of that state. Yeah. But then a lot of people drop out because it's boring to the mental state. Yeah? There's no big wins. You know, oh, I got it. You don't get it. You really don't. You don't get it.
Are you talking about enlightenment?
I'm talking about just basically being awake to being awake. Let's take the target down a little bit. Enlightenment's a little bit... Look at what's happened with enlightenment and, let's say, awakening in these type of meetings. Enlightenment, one definition, is cessation of all suffering, yes? But you see at spiritual meetings, enlightenment's driving fucking people crazy. I'm not enlightened yet, and that guy's enlightened. How can he be enlightened? I've gone to way more meetings than he has. Isn't that right? You can watch it. The mental claiming of enlightenment uses it to agitate. We would have been better off if we never heard those words, really. I mean, it's like a curse to people. I'm not awake. The worst is they were awake, but they blew it somehow. Now they're back to being non-awake. That's unbelievable. That's getting it twice up the ass. That's really something else. Really.
It happens a lot from when I hear.
But
it happens a lot from when I hear.
I've seen some. Yeah, it's terrible. It felt like suddenly they did something to get it, and then really crudely they think they did something to lose it. Yeah, you don't have that much power here. You're not that relevant, really. You're not. You can't see all our shenanigans doesn't leave a mark on what we are. It's untouchable, truly. It is. All this is going to be gone tonight. We're going to go to sleep. All this is going. The Etch-a-Sketch is going to be erased, and next morning, this fucking lines will happen again, and then erased, and on and on. So, this just allows you to be okay just the way you're not. That's been that's real. The benefit here is, that's the value here is traveling lighter as this. Awareness doesn't have to travel lighter. There's no value in being aware and awareness. There's value here where a lot of people don't seem to be awake to the awareness. That's why it's valuable. Here is what denotes and connotes value, this place. So to me, being awake is just a fact. And then there's the possibility that you can seem not to be, or there's a possibility you can seem to be, but you are, period. Yeah? So, and every night the charade's closed, and then you are awake. Yeah, and then you get up, and maybe you decide not to be awake that day, and huff and puff and make it seem to be so, and then the whole fucking house of cards falls down. Next one, and maybe you'll get tired of blowing up the fucking hole, the deflatable hole, you know, doll with holes. You know, just fucking let it. Yeah, yeah. If you're looking for a subtle path, this isn't it. I need a subtler path. This isn't it, really. This is no path, my feeling, really. And then get left with your own devices without having them gilded or robed, or just see, you know, see what you're not. Yeah. Yeah. All right, that's it, eh, tonight.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, my friend. Thanks for sitting through it all. It's getting cold here. What's happening? Where's my shirt?
You do.
Oh, wait a minute. Does anybody want to buy any